What's up, party people? Happy hump day. It is another episode of Iller and Filthier coming to you on a Wednesday instead of a Thursday. Brian and I'm Greg Eisenhower, and my buddy Brian are here to chat with a little Father's Day edition. Got a fun little match game planned, and we're going to just chat about being dads and stuff, and I got my cool dad attire on, so I'm ready to rock.
The polo is rocking.
Take one.
Hey, Brian.
So, what are you doing, man?
Well, I sat back and thought about the things we used to do. We had a lot of fun.
You really want to do this with me?
Bro, you know I do.
What's up, Brian?
Doing good. Doing good. I'm glad we could squeeze this one in this week. A little off schedule, but we're making sure we appease the fans. Or,
that's right.
The fan, the singular fan.
The fan.
I think Jeff's been the only fan. He's not here today, but
yeah, I got my cold beer. I just figured I can't really film this in the garage, but I feel like we should. I was like, I got to put my dad attire on. My kids always make fun of me when I wear like something like this. She's like, you just look like a dad.
And Filthier. Take one.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that you're kind of rocking the dad look. I kind of like it.
Yeah, I got my cold beer. I'm just, and I'm going to talk to my buddy. I mean, it's like dad special. I
feel like I'm kind of dressed down now. I feel like you've kicked it up a slight notch on me.
Well, I mean, the fans are looking for, anything.
You know what I'm jealous of a lot of things about you, but another thing is the fact that you can actually wear hats that look good on you.
I only have a couple, but I'm picky about hats.
But do you recognize that you look good in a hat? Like I have issues. Like my head is too big. I've got a head size that's like 8 1/4. So you can't find a hat that actually fits. And so I always look stupid with hats on, but I see you and I think like all cool dads wear hats.
I like hats. Being a bald man, I think it looks cooler.
Are you bald by nature or is that choice?
I have a pretty heavy receding hairline. Like I have hair up here. I guess you could say I choose to cut it.
Have you ever thought about just one more time?
No, I think it would look terrible. It's so thin and all those blow dry and hairspray days from the 80s, man, just got, tore my hair apart.
This is the first time that I've let my hair grow out since I think right after the college years, that's when I shaved it off right after I had graduated, I think. Yeah. And I've been shaved the entire time. And then the last 6 months, I'm like, I think this is like my last hurrah to see if I can still grow out hair. And my problem is I'm so used to not worrying about my hair when I wake up in the morning. I go out and about and do stuff and I forget to do my hair. And it looks like I just crawled out of bed and people look at me with the hair and the beard now. It's not a good thing.
It's part of your look though. It's the mystique, I love it. No, I like hats. Like in the winter, I wear beanies all the time. I've always got a hat on for the most part. I think I can go without. I don't wear them at work very often. I mean, sometimes I do.
Right.
I'm pretty casual, like in that way. So I think I look okay in a hat. I agree with you. I think Rachel likes me in a hat, so that's always good. And then like you said, I'm super picky about them. I have a small head actually. And so it's like finding like those big square kind of cool hats don't look good on me. I got to find something that kind of works.
How big are you? Do you know?
7 1/4 maybe. I haven't bought a fitted hat in a while, but it's pretty small.
Well,
yeah.
I'm a full inch bigger than you then.
Yeah.
Circumference wise.
Just talking about head size.
Yeah. Wow. We're probably reversed on the other end of things, which is like, where do you want that extra inch to come? The top up here or down below?
You get to pick, and I feel like I got shafted on everything. I got small hands, small feet. I'm short. I'm not swinging a very big hammer.
Well, it's Father's Day week. we're doing a show a few days before Father's Day, but this will be out for all the dads out there to kind of enjoy. And I think that you've kind of produced a really good show coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about being dads and fathers. Yeah. You want to set it up as to what people are going to expect to hear and what we're going to do?
Yeah, I think we're just going to talk a little bit. I mean, Brian and I haven't talked tons about our kids to each other and stuff. I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through, you know, we were talking about the paths. Like, I think we've grown up differently a little bit, but then also I'm just curious to hear about our kids' paths and how both of us kind of have kids doing things we're not like into. So it's just cool to kind of maybe talk through some of that. And then we're just going to play a fun little, you guys remember the hair band or the metal band match game we played a couple episodes ago. I'm going to do something similar to that, some dad stuff. Maybe a little play off the MLK we did, or MFK we did for Mom's Day.
Right. Have to be fair.
Yeah, we're going to do a little, maybe not get as fun as that, but we're going to have some fun.
I think it's kind of weird, though, and we've talked about it a couple times in various episodes, to where the realization that we are dads, like we're responsible for kids and the stage of life that we're in. I'm a few years further along than you are, as opposed, or when it comes to like the kids. My kids are older.
Yeah. Yep.
My youngest just graduated high school, and I think you've got.
I'll have a senior and junior next year.
Senior and a junior next year, so you're going to have back-to-back graduations like we did.
Yeah.
And then you and Rachel are going to have to kind of figure out what life is afterwards.
Going to be in St. Louis a lot, I think, is what I'm seeing.
I didn't realize it would affect us as much as I thought it would.
Yeah.
More so the wife, it's affecting, I think, about what we kind of thought. It's been really hard for her, especially with our oldest and our first one leaving last year.
Yeah.
And that was a tough thing. But last year, again, was the anomaly year that we had so many things kind of going on that it's understandable that it was a little bit tough on her and the family. So, my oldest is at West Point, and having him going into the military, that's one thing to kind of deal with. And then our dog, which we've had since the kids were small, was diagnosed all of a sudden with cancer and given like just weeks to live. And so we had to kind of deal with that. And then, oh, by the way, then the wife gets diagnosed with breast cancer. So, last year was just kind of a wacky year. And, everything so far up until now is, when people ask, I just say, look, we can't complain. There's nothing we can complain about, because there's other people that are going through some things that we've gone through, but the outcome is a little bit different. And I'm just like, I'm not rolling the dice.
Yeah. No, we always use the children's hospital analogy. Like, anything that happens, you think about, you would take one walk through like a place like that, and
right.
It makes you, like you said, it can always be worse, I guess is the point. Like, and it's a good perspective, because we had a rough year, not as rough as you guys, but we had also things going on. I think every family, and it's different, but you do have to put it in perspective sometimes and be like, yeah, we're much better off than other people.
Well, it's a good reminder, I think, also in knowing that, maybe that person that you work with or a friend of yours or something, they're acting a little different, or what, you don't know what people are going through.
Right. Yeah.
And,
correct.
There's times to where there'll be days or even weeks to where I'm just in a foul mood for no other reason other than just day-to-day stuff that just kind of starts to weigh on you.
Yeah.
And I'm not a talkative type person. I don't have a lot of people that I would, converse and confide in.
Yeah.
So people, how they can tell is the way I'm very kind of standoffish.
Yeah.
And people take that as me being an asshole, which I kind of am, but I I more so nowadays than I did for the last few years. I just don't want to mess with people. I don't want to interact. I don't
Right.
want to. This is going to sound awful, but I don't necessarily want to hear everything that's going on with what you got going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's weird because I just don't want to get in that conversation to where if they're sharing something, then I feel like I have to share something, and I'm like, I just don't want to.
I think that's fair. I get that. It's the same thing. Like, I think that's no different than when sometimes I see people in public places and maybe I'm like, oh, I could go say hi, and you don't, and you kind of feel guilty, but it's like the same thing. You don't want to go through the whole, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's like kind of thing. And I think that's okay. And especially like you said, I mean, if you got stuff going on, you don't want to talk about it or want to feel like you have to share it. I think that's okay too. You shouldn't feel bad.
Well, the interesting thing here that we get to, here's one of the times where we're like, okay, let's talk a little bit about it again, because Greg alluded to it on the intro, that we haven't really had a chance to kind of talk about being dads and all the stuff that accompanies that between the two of us, two fun-loving guys that run a podcast and went to college together, had a lot of fun.
Yep.
And we both have 2 kids. I've got 2 boys. Again, mine just graduated high school. Another one who's his first year at West Point is being completed. And Greg's got what is going to be a senior and a junior, but his are a boy-girl.
Yours are back-to-back too? So you would have had a senior, junior as well?
Yeah. So my youngest, we moved up a year. So you know how most people would move their kids back?
Yeah.
We moved ours up, not to get into the whole details about that, but we actually just talked about it with him a few days ago. We're like, hey, looking back now, do you think that was the right call of moving you up? And he says he enjoyed it.
Yeah. Did he have a late birthday, or was it?
They're both September birthdays.
Okay.
But we felt like everybody thinks their kids are like super smart and intelligent and all this other bullshit or whatever. But we just felt like holding him back normal, it just wasn't good for his development at the time. And we sat down and talked to so many counselors and a lot of the educators. And the thing was, that's fine now, but you really have to think about once they get into high school, if you're going to move him forward physically when he gets to that high school age, when people are getting into high school sports and everything, physically he's going to be a little bit smaller. Yeah. And then people getting their driver's license, he can't drive. So you have a lot of things to kind of figure out. And we kind of waited, and the wife and I thought at the time that was the move to go ahead and do. But we know way more people that will hold their kid back a year just so that when they get to high school physically, they're
for sports. I know. I've heard that. Yeah. Yeah. Our daughter's in that boat. She made her class by a week. She's got a late August birthday, and same thing there. I mean, she's just the youngest in her class, and she's kind of small. So there's times we kind of mentally she was great and prepared. And that's why we said, no, she should go when she was young. But yeah, looking back, it's like, we probably could have held, if she would have started a year later or whatever.
Have you asked her that question straight up?
No, I don't know if Rachel has. I don't think we've had the conversation with her per se, but she recognizes she's younger than her friends, same thing, last to get a license. She kind of doesn't care though.
Right.
But you can tell, like, emotionally, there's some of her friends in her class. I mean, they're a full year ahead of her.
Yeah.
Which with girls and emotions, it's like, that's a big deal. But,
right.
But
there has to be a little bit of guilt in the parents, and you and I maybe, because in the back of my head, I've thought just to myself, was that the right course of action?
Right.
And
Eventually
it bugged me enough to ask him the other day when we're all in the car.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah. I think both of our kids, looking back, would probably, just because they were smaller and they're slow developers, but you don't know that at the time, right? But looking back, I think we both would have been like, oh, we probably would have helped, just because Evan was always a waste just because of me. I mean, the kids got my height. I mean, they're smaller kids. Not so much now. I mean, Evan's really filled out, but there were times like in school, he was always a little bit smaller than his buddies and stuff. And so we always kind of felt like maybe both of them would have been nice to start a little bit later. But at the same time, it's like, why do that if there's no reason to? I mean, they were both, their brains, mentally, all that, were very, very smart kids. And there's no reason to hold them back for that reason,
Right.
So, and yeah, like I said, it wasn't really a big decision. I mean, she made it in her class by a week. So, I mean, it wasn't like we had much. It was like, yeah, why wouldn't we send her,
Do you remember in life, and you probably won't be able to pick out the day, maybe a ballpark grouping of years or something, to where you realized your focus on your relationship with the wife kind of converted over to where that maybe that takes a back seat into now both of you are managing the relationships with your kids as the priority. And I know maybe some people say, well, that's not what you're supposed to do. You put equal effort into all of it.
Yeah.
But I think just realistically, once you have kids, the focus is on the relationship with them, and you kind of put the relationship with the spouse in the back seat.
Yeah, I think Rachel and I are lucky, and I feel like we have managed to keep like our relationship special to each other. And I don't know why, I don't know why or how we did it. It wasn't intentional. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we met so much later in life, we met and we're only engaged for 3 months or knew each other for 3 months, got engaged. And then we had Evan within a year of getting married. Whereas I know you guys were together a lot longer. So there's an established relationship. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but we've somehow managed to like really keep our relationship at the forefront. We've tried to kind of keep, even when we talk to like my nieces and nephews are all getting married, and, when you give like that wisdom, old man wisdom advice of like, we've always kind of tried to stay dating each other. I think we got lucky in the sense that we were, when the kids were little, it was a lot harder, but then we got to that place where, so we don't have a lot of family around us. We did it in certain stages, but just, my family's in Missouri, her family's not here anymore. Like her dad lives in Florida, mom passed away. So it's like, we just don't have that like nest. Our nest is our friends, that's our family here. But,
isn't that kind of weird? Or to me, when I hear you say that, and the tone at which you said it makes it sound like you wish that you had family by you. I wish the opposite. Like, I wish my family and her family were nowhere near us. And I know that if they hear that, that's going to cause some issues. But I want to be left alone, but I want my family unit to be left alone. But I know that's not good for them. But sometimes I'm just like, it's too much.
Yeah. And maybe it is because we just haven't had them around us. We've never had, like, even when the kids were born and babies, and her parents were here and supportive, but they were snowbirds, so they lived in Florida half the year. So there were a lot of times it was like us, but we had, like, her sister was close by. But again, that's why our friends are so important to us, and our friends are like family. I mean, we've got just this nest of support, and it's great. But what I was getting at is, I think, like, we've always tried to stay dating each other, just finding those times to go out and do things together. And it was funny, like early on when her mom would kind of was like, well, why do you need to go out? It's just such a different generation. She's like, no, you're a mom. Like, it's your job. And we'd be like, no, like, she was blown away a little bit by Rachel, like having friends that went out. Like, it's just such a different generation, where when the kids were little, we made sure we both had fun separately. Cause I think that's the difference, to your point. I think when the kids were small, you had to divide and conquer, right? Like, somebody was with the kids, maybe somebody could go out and have some fun. And as we've gotten older, once they hit that age, like I think we got back to like having fun together. Now we're even closer because kids are teenagers. They want nothing to do with this. Right.
Right.
You probably know what that's like. And then we're nearing, to your point, the empty nest kind of thing. And that's when a lot of relationships go south too. We've seen that. We've heard like people don't know what to do, and it's just the two of them again. And we're kind of excited about that because we've always been very good friends. We're like each other's best friends. We really do love being together.
But isn't that kind of the eye roll comment that we all hear, to where, especially like on Facebook? Sure.
Yeah,
I married my best friend.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And then I get, most of us just or at least I do. Yeah. This is why I'm pessimistic and I don't have friends, is because I make fun of those kind of comments. But I kind of see that with you two.
Yeah, I think it's there. I mean, she's cool. You know, we enjoy similar things. We have I've always had this analogy that men and women are like the Mars and Venus thing, right? Like, or whatever that is, but we're way over here. The trick is finding somebody that's closest to the middle. It's like, you know, like we always think about things different. And that's the fun about being married, is like, you can talk to anybody that's married, and the jokes. And Rachel sometimes are like, oh, did you make fun of me? I'm like, that's what we do. Like, guys make, like, same thing. I'm sure when you go on girls' weekends, you complain about us, and it's just what happens, right? Like, I don't have a lot of complaints about her, but we're still married. I still get it that, you know, there's just those funny, when I see married memes, I'm like, yep, they're funny because you get it. Like, you know.
Do you, when you look at your relationship with your children, between you and your wife, is there kind of a competition between the two of you on who the kids like better, perhaps? Or no? Or are you just like,
no, I think
you're playing the role of the dad, she's the mom, and you're doing your role, and then that is what it is.
I think we have kind of the natural, the boy and the girl. I think there's you know, Evan interacts with me the same way that Kenley interacts with Rachel, a little bit more. But there's some personal, like, emotion stuff, the way a mother and a son's relationship and a father-daughter relationship. I think there's some, like, I'm starting to see those, like, you know, there's Evan and Rachel are close in their own way, but like, I mean, we just naturally like similar things. And I think
like for what example? Like, give me examples of how you and your boy connect versus you and your daughter, and then vice versa with Rachel. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think Evan and I have the natural, like, dad, you know, the car, like, Evan's in the car, so that's his passion, right? So he's not a sports kid. Neither one of my kids play sports. They just never had an interest. I mean, they just have never been into that, and which is okay. We were both, that's early on, like, I'm okay with that. It's different. I just wanted to experience life, you know. I played a lot of sports. I wasn't great at any one thing, but I did stuff. And so Evan's into cars, and so it's got me into cars. Like, so same with I look at how my dad was. You know, my parents supported my music. Neither one of them really played music. My mom was a little musical, but my dad, music was like, he wasn't into music. He was a sports guy,
right?
And Boy Scouts and all those things. And like, but when he was a baseball guy, and when I started playing soccer became my sport, you know, like middle school. But my dad coached some of my teams. He took time to learn, and he was just willing to accept that, like, okay, this is what Greg likes, and water sports and all that. But, you know, and he supported my music stuff, but I don't, you know, which was cool. And the same with Evan. That's how I see it. It's cool. I think it's interesting how, like, cars are his thing. So he's got me into it. Like, I'm curious about it. I've helped him do stuff. You know, it's become kind of like our thing together. And fishing's kind of another thing that I grew up doing with my dad. It's kind of the one thing that we connect on. Because there for a while, I was struggling trying to find a way to bond with him.
Right. So the car thing is his thing that you're dipping into his interests, and the fishing thing is possibly maybe your thing that he's.
It's kind of both of us, right? Like, I grew up fishing, and he kind of got me back into it. I fished a ton. I lived on a lake, spent all my time on the water growing up. And so he likes to fish, and it's fun to do that with him. And I find that those are fun things we can do together. And sometimes we can talk when we're fishing, and it's, you know, you can kind of get stuff out of them without feeling like, hey, let's sit down and talk, buddy. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah. A little more natural. And
yeah.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I think it's just now we just have that natural boy girl thing. Like Rachel and Kenley obviously connect over, girl stuff and emotions, and Kenley always like, oh, Dad, you don't understand if it comes to like the drama, and so Rachel gets that with her. But Kenley and I connect through music, and she's got kind of my sense of humor, and so I think sometimes we kind of can play off each other and be goofy together and like tease Rachel, just stuff like that. Like,
but when it comes to like inside jokes, let's say when we had our little group back in college and we're all together, a late night on a Friday night, listen to Lords of Acid, just having a good time, and something were to happen within our group, you and I would look at each other because of inside jokes.
Yeah.
Do you have inside jokes kind of more with your boy or your girl?
Probably more with Kenley, because again, she's a little more willing to like let herself out there and joke and stuff. Evan's a little more tightly strung, and he probably doesn't know how to like laugh and joke as much as like he struggles with that probably a little bit.
Who's more like you and who's more like Rachel? Or is it a good mix? It could be a good mix, or
it's pretty good,
nothing like the two of you.
No, it's a pretty good mix, I'd say. It's kind of a mix. I think we're seeing a little of both. Like I said, I see a little more things that Kenley does in me or in her, and then Evan and Rachel bond on some stuff like social things, school stuff. Evan and I are built the same, kind of look the same, walk the same. There's some stuff like that that's kind of funny, but yeah, so I think it's a good mix, really. I feel like they got all the bad stuff from all of us. So it's like
right.
anxieties, all the things. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry you got this and this and this. Like,
now, do you see things that you have issues with yourself in either of your two kids, and then that causes problems, but it's more because the issue is with you, but you're seeing it in your kid and you're recognizing that?
Yeah. Evan and I have had some blowouts because of the car stuff. Like, we're both pretty short tempered. We're both very impatient, and I'm old enough to know how to control it and be the, experienced soul of like, let me tell you, don't do that, right. And it's like, so I have to let him go through it. But like, yeah, a lot of people don't know that about me, is like, I have a terrible temper because I'm pretty good to control it around people. When I'm by myself or things frustrate me, I get it's gotten a lot better. I've made a real effort to like control myself, and he just blows up. Right. Like,
and when that happens, who has to,
we just learn how to deal with it. And some of it is, they just have to like, you just ignore it. It's the whole let them just get it out of their system, be mad, and they'll figure it out, But
like you and Rachel, let's just say something like that. It's happening. You and Rachel look at each other. Who's saying you need to go deal with him?
It depends on what it is. I think it depends on where we are. We're a pretty good team.
Sure.
That started when the kids were, newborns. Like, we would always be kind of like, we always talked about how when Evan was our first. So like, when you have no idea what you're doing and it's 4 a.m. and he's crying and crying and crying, one of us was always in a good place.
Sure.
Like, one of us could recognize that the other person maybe wasn't and be like, hey, I got this,
Cool.
So I think we do a good job of recognizing if one person's not in a good spot, that person kind of swoops in and is like, hey, I got this, don't worry about it. I got this under control. So but it's just different now that, the kids are older and like, we went through this phase of like we stopped caring about swearing and stuff like that. There was a time when, it was really bothering me and listening to my kids swear. And then I got to a point where I'm like, who cares? At the end of the day, I was like, I do it when my buddies are around. It's just, everybody's just swearing. As long as he doesn't do it at school, and we kind of tell him we're in front of your grandparents. Did I just freeze?
Yeah, a little bit. You're back.
But that's just one of those things, like you think about how you were parented, and I think the world changes and you have to adapt a little bit. And you're like, okay, this is how I was raised. And so I'm kind of like, is it really a big deal that if he swears? Like, I mean, at what point is it okay? He's 17 years old. It's going to be 18. Like,
Right.
Like, did you guys care about that?
I mean, Amy and I don't, and we've always kind of let them have, and I'm going to say free reign in expressing themselves or whatever. I've always kind of just challenged them when they were younger in that you don't want to, let's say if we're talking swearing, right?
Yeah.
You don't want it to come off like that's the only way you know how to talk.
Yeah.
And I understand, like, when you're trying to be funny, sometimes a fuck here or a shit there is just funnier. We're a very sarcastic, funny family. So when you're using it and it's part of the moment, even when they were little, and I don't think that they abused it at all.
Right.
So it's just one of those things to where, and I think it's a case-by-case basis with families and parenting and all that stuff. If I felt like my kids wouldn't be able to handle that and needed to be reined in a little bit more, I would probably want to draw the line a little tighter.
Yeah.
But I've always kind of given them, here's what I've said to a couple other parents that have asked me about, how we've raised our kids or whatever, in a sense that both of them have earned the right over the years and have banked up enough things to where they can mess up a little bit.
Right.
I feel very fortunate that Amy and I, both the boys have done a really good job. They've had their own path and it's different.
Yeah.
But as far as like staying out late, doing things to where you give them some freedom as a parent, there are some boundaries. And Amy and I are relatively close in how we want to, put those rules out. But we do a pretty good job of kind of coming to a consensus of, okay, let's try this then. Right. And we've always given them the ability to have some freedom in what they do until they prove to us that they can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
So, and we've never really come across to the point to where we've had to be like, okay, you've lost that privilege of doing this or that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's similar. We've had that conversation a lot. If, having a boy and a girl there's differences there. It's just natural, right? Like, and I think Rachel and I she views things with Kinley as not a big deal. And I view things with Evan as not a big deal. And they must be the sex, something there. Just some examples, like, so when, Evan's into the car scene, so all his friends are car buddies. He likes to go to car shows and stuff. And like car shows, meaning there's these, they're somewhat sanctioned, not sanctioned is the wrong word, but like, they're not just random hangouts in parking lots. They're literally like, somebody knows there's the show going on. It's a Friday night. He goes out to the other side of Minneapolis, which from us is like 40 minutes away. So he's the equivalent of like your kids going into somewhere in downtown St. Louis, right? I mean, he's going into the city. So it's a little nerve wracking. And he was 15 when he started doing this, but they literally just go pull in these parking lots. Usually the police are around because the city knows what's happening, because otherwise so that's what I mean. It's they're known events. Hey, we're going to gather, and they're generally pretty like tame stuff. There's not, because there's police around, because of the number of cars, it can be hundreds of cars. It's more like a show versus it's not just like a bunch of kids like hanging out in a field or something like.
Right.
But he would go to those, and she, Rachel and I would talk about it. At first, she was super nervous about him. And I was like, hey, like you said, he's never been in trouble. He's never got chased out of there. Generally, these things are pretty tame, and we just haven't seen issues. And so it's like you said, like, until there's an issue, I don't have a problem with him going. And he comes home when we tell him to come home. And before he could drive, he would be kind of, there were times he came home a little late, but he would tell us like, hey, I've because we get it. He's riding with kids that are older or whatever. So we understand that. And then now that he goes on his own and drives his cars, I mean, that's what he loves. It's what he loves to do. He walks around, he has fun. And so those are something, I think Rachel would always be a little hesitant, like, and I'd always be like, he's fine. Cause I know he's fine. I know he could get himself out of trouble. Like if he, I think I just don't worry if something happened to him or if stuff started going down, he'd get out of there,
Well,
and then the same,
go ahead.
I was just going to say the opposite of that is like my daughter, when she went on her first date, I mean, I was just like, okay, so where is she? Like, and Rachel's like, it's all good. And I'm just like, no, it's not. Like, what's happening? Like, where is she? Like, just a funny, like, I was more stressed, I think, about her going out because I just view her, and that's probably just me being sexist, but I just, I'm worried about her more than I worry about Evan. Like, I just feel like if something happened to Evan, he could get himself out of trouble, or if, two dudes started fighting him and he could at least fight him back. You don't feel that way about your daughter. Like,
well, so that's the interesting part for me to find out, talking to you. One is comparing the dad to the boy stories, because I can relate to that. And then I'm fascinated also with the dynamic of you with the daughter. And I think it sounds like both you and I, and Rachel and Amy as well, we've come to kind of a parental agreement that we have to kind of trust their instincts and their own situational awareness of their surroundings and who they hang out with and everything. I guess the one thing that I worried about going back a few years is I wanted them to pick the right people to be around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because I knew that, let's just say, because we were big into youth hockey. Both my boys played hockey. That I was aware of a lot of the kids that they played with, and dealing with them at the rink and whatever, fine. Because that's just at the rink. Yeah. But I wasn't a big fan of knowing that my kids were hanging around with a lot of those kids. Yeah. Outside of the rink, because I'm like, for example, with my oldest, I'm like, hey, you pick who you want to hang out with. I get it. Yeah. But just know that who you surround yourself with, whether they're really not that into, schoolwork or doing the things that you need to do, because he was trying to get into West Point. Right. The margin for error, if you fuck around and screw up and do something, then you're out. Yeah. You're not in the mix. And so that was my worry with him. Like the last couple of years that he was here, I just wanted to make sure that you're with other high achieving people that are just aware of they have to get shit done. Yeah. They can't go out and drink and party all night and go to somebody's house at 4:00 in the morning and just do goofy stuff like that, because you mess up, that's it. Right. But I had to corral myself, hold myself back and be like, look, they're at that age to where they have to learn how to figure this out and who they want to be around and who's a good influence on them. But I also don't want to be like, you got to hang around a bunch of boring people. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think you want them to experience life and through all stages, right? Like, you taught them how to walk, they fell down, you had to pick them up. And like, that keeps happening just in different levels. It becomes more serious, like, but they do have to have fun, and it's part of life. This is in some ways the best part of their life. Like my son's this summer, like he works at the Acura dealer, and he does, he's just into the car stuff. So he's got this great job, but he's working he's like, I just want to work. He wants to make money. And he's working he's working 45 plus hours a week. And part of me is like, dude, you don't have to do that. You're going to do that for so long in your life that, man, so we just try to tell him, I get you want to make money, but I was like, don't miss out on having fun too. And you're only 17 one time. Right. But if that's what he wants to do, it is. And maybe it's not your thing or my thing. I think that's the tough part of being parents and being dads here, is letting them have to go through that and make those decisions on their
Yeah.
own. And it may not be the right decisions, but they'll have to go through the consequences or whatever and let them kind of learn, as opposed to us always telling them what they have to do, which that doesn't work. I don't think.
No. And it's more, I just didn't want him to, I never wanted him to feel like, I want him to make sure he knows, like, we're not being like, you know, like being like, you have to go to work, you know, like stuff like that. And,
Right.
And some of it is he loves structure. So I think he loves, like, I think he's a kid that has a hard time. Like, if, you know, if he didn't have a job, like if he was just sitting here in the summer with nothing to do, he'd struggle. Like, he's good with the structure. So I think he likes that structure. Like, I got to go to work, and this is what I do. And he likes being in the industry. I think, you know, it's because all his friends and all his car buddies, they all work. They all have good jobs. They all make good money because they're putting their money into cars, which are an expensive ass hobby. But yeah.
We have to kind of trust them, and I know it's hard on us and trying to figure out, you know, if the daughter's on a date, you know, whatever's going on there. I know I want to make sure we're having a good time talking dad stuff, and I think this is going to be a recurring theme on episodes down the road. But I think we should save enough time for the game, because we're going to have a lot of dad talk within the game.
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds fun.
And welcome to the match game on Iller and Filthier.
I'm loving the match game theme that we have. So I think that it just allows us to have fun.
Oh yeah,
in so many different ways.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff we can do with that.
So explain to people what we have set up, how we have set it up, what we're doing, because it's actually pretty cool how you've designed this.
So I think if some of you remember the MFK we did with moms, we made some choices, but I think what we're going to do with this one is similar to the metal thing we did. We're going to have a grid of 9. I believe you did 9, right? Fathers. Again, it should be, I assume they're famous entertainment fathers, TV, movie, well-known fathers. And I came up with some questions or scenarios and so Brian and I are going to kind of discuss together. So it's not him versus me, but like we'll discuss together on who fits the scenario and kind of match up. So so I assume once one's off the board, we lose them.
That's it. That's right.
Yeah. And so what we did to make it fun, though, is Brian came up with the dads and I came up with the scenarios. And so we haven't shared that with each other. You know, we like that element of surprise here on Iller and Filthier.
I just love that idea. So you want me to bring the board? I got the board ready to go.
Let's bring the board up.
All right. So like Greg mentioned, I came with 9 dads that I think everybody knows. They're famous. And Greg has not seen this, nor have I seen the scenarios that he's going to come up with. So here's the board that we have set up. So let's go through all 9, Greg. Why don't you go through and see and make sure you know everybody?
All right. So we've got Clark W. Griswold. So know him from the Vacation movies. Don Vito from The Godfather.
Yeah.
We've got Heathcliff Huxtable, famous therapist from Cosby. Oh, I'm seeing that's the rapist, not therapist. Okay. Just kidding. Ozzy Osbourne.
And we're going, and that it's Heathcliff Huxtable. That's not Bill Cosby.
Yeah, correct. It's the character.
It's the character, the dad that he played on the Cosby Show.
Yes. And then we've got Ozzy Osbourne from obviously Black Sabbath, the Ozzy band, and of course from the Osbournes, right?
The reality show where he was a dad.
Yep. We've got Darth Vader, who was, obviously from Star Wars. Phil is Modern Family.
Yep.
Mike from the Brady Bunch. God, Mufasa, that's great, from Disney's Lion King. And finally, Jack what's it called?
Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents. Yeah, one of my favorite movies. Yeah, that Meet the Parents.
Great. I think a trilogy, right? Like 3 movies on there.
Yeah,
the
3
Fockers.
or 4. Yeah.
All different kind of dads. I try to get a good mix for you. And so
Well-
the idea is you've got scenarios that you and I are going to have to work together
Yeah.
and
Well-
pick one dad for each scenario, right?
Yeah. These are really funny. So my question to you is like, I have the scenarios. Do I read them in order? That way it's forced, or do I kind of pick the scenarios I have listed out? What do
Read
you
them
think?
in order, and then if whoever we pick is off the board. And I've got a way to gray out our character to keep track of.
Okay. All right. Our first scenario would be, have you seen Taken, the movie Taken?
I have seen Taken.
So what was his name? Liam Neeson?
Uh-huh.
So which of these fathers would you want to come rescue you if you were kidnapped?
Oh. Well, there's one that just jumps right out for me in this particular scenario. The question is going to be, do we want to have this one dad off the board for anything else that we have coming up, or we're going to be stuck?
I feel like you're leaning towards I feel like I'm leaning Don, Darth, or Jack. But what were you thinking when you say?
When the first that came to my mind was Jack.
Okay. Yeah,
because Jack's got CIA background.
CIA background. Yeah. Oh, you're damn right. Yeah, that's
and the information to track people down.
You're right.
I mean, are we going to be comfortable with Jack being gone off the board?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so what was the scenario one more time before we take Jack off the board?
So similar to the movie Taken or the movie Ransom with Mel Gibson, which of these fathers would you want if you were kidnapped to come? Who would you want? And I agree with you. It's Jack, the CIA experience. He's coming to get us. He's gonna in his big ass RV.
I just don't know. I mean, maybe Don Vito would be able to do that as well. But I think if we get Jack off the board, we still have a Don Vito for other things. I know Clark wouldn't be a good match for us. I'm thinking Jack. Are you saying Jack?
Yep, I'm good with that.
All
I'm
right.
happy. All right. So scenario 2. Have you seen the movie American President? Cute little
Refresh
movie.
me a little bit. Or give me the scenario.
It's a cute movie from, I can't remember when it was, but it's Michael Douglas plays a single president, and his daughter, he starts dating Annette Bening in the movie, and it's just a funny idea to think of a single president.
Okay.
So which of these other 8 dads would be the best president?
The best president,
or who would we think? Or who do we think would make the best president?
and I think that we have to assume like actual president.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like like, you know what? That
not a movie, but no, yeah, like
that dad would be a good president.
Yeah, it's going to be Biden, Trump, and this person on the ballot in November.
Man, all right, who are we thinking?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
I think Heathcliff would be a good one. Smart guy.
Would you consider Mufasa? I mean, he's a king.
He is that's a good
right?
point.
You know what I mean? Like he's a
good ruler. Well, yeah. No, that's a great point.
Darth's a little hot-tempered.
Yeah.
Ozzy is like Biden. He doesn't really know what's happening.
I don't think Ozzy would be a good one. Clark wouldn't be a good one.
Mike Brady, but yeah, I kind of think Mufasa's kind of.
I think you sold me on the Mufasa and the president.
Yeah.
I'm afraid because I'm like, Mufasa's just like, I think all of us can agree. Yeah. Mufasa's just like a pretty good dad.
He's
I think
pretty badass. Yeah, he was everything. Right?
And he seemed like he was a really good king. The place they grew up on seemed to be really organized and people knew their
beautiful
roles.
Grass. Yeah, everything looked good when he was in charge.
He had his edges cut on his lawn.
And yes.
I'll go Mufasa on that one. Okay. So Mufasa as president, right?
Yes.
All right.
Oh man, these are going to get interesting. All right. Number 3 scenario. Birds and the bees. Which dad would you want to have the sex talk with you?
The sex talk with me when I was little?
Yeah,
Okay.
The sex talk, yeah. Just like the guy that's going to sit you down and kind of explain sex to you.
Oh man. Well, I mean, Heathcliff is a OBGYN, so it'd be very.
Oh, yep.
Phil would be fun to
I
have
was
that
thinking
conversation.
Mike. Yeah, Phil, Heathcliff, and Mike are the three that jump out to me. Mike Brady just seems like that. I'm sure there was a Brady Bunch episode.
Right. Where he's talking to Greg.
Yeah, Marsha's trying to get that ass. Yeah, Greg's trying to slap that ass.
I think it would be a mistake to have Clark do it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a mistake if Ozzy did it. Darth, I don't think that would work.
Have
Don
you ever
Vito,
seen Darth have sex? Like, I guess he did in episode 3.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Right?
Yeah, early 3, him and Padme.
Lucky bastard.
Can you imagine? Like, he'd be like, "I got to take my stuff off."
Yeah, hold on.
Don Vito would be too. Like, I just don't see him to even be in it. I think that he's from a generation where you just don't talk about it.
Right. Yeah. Hey, just smack her on the ass. Is okay, so just hear me out. I know it's the character, but can we put Heathcliff in this? I mean, are we going to get comments like,
but
it's
but
the
we
character.
said it's Heathcliff Huxtable. He did nothing wrong.
That's true.
He is not in jail. Or like, is Bill in jail now or no? He's not in jail.
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm with you. I think that's the right pick because of that. I forgot he was an OBGYN.
Yeah. I think that has to be
okay.
I'm leaning towards Heathcliff. If there were people watching, if there's somebody watching this and you guys want to help us out, please feel free to drop something in the comments. But I think for the birds and the bees talk, I think it has to be Heathcliff.
Okay.
He's OBGYN. He would tell you how things work and probably talk about protection, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I'm going Heathcliff. What do you say?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah,
all right.
I'm with you on that. All right. Heathcliff's off the board. Mufasa's off the board. Jack's off the board. We've got, 6 left? And we're on to scenario number 3. This one will be interesting because I referenced him in this, but which dad would you want to share your first beer with? Which was in Vacation is where I got the idea. So
which dad would you want to share your first beer with?
Like, I don't know if you remember the scene, but
I do. It's a great one.
Yeah.
That's a great father-son moment. I think there's 2 for me, Clark and Phil, but I lean towards Clark because of that scene.
I know. I mean, we kind of have to, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to choose between Clark and Phil, and I think because of that particular scene in the movie, father-son moment, it's Father's Day week. Yeah. I'm going to lean towards Clark. What about you?
Yeah, it's kind of hard not to. I wanted to come up with something different to make it interesting, but that's one of my favorite scenes too. When he drinks that beer on the desert, it's so good.
All right, so we're going to take Clark.
All right, we're going to take Clark off the board for the beer. Okay, next. All right, so our next scenario is we've got Don Vito left, Ozzy, Darth, Phil, and Mike Brady.
Yep.
Who's coaching the soccer team? Which is going to be the dad recruited to be the soccer coach?
This might be easier for me if I were to rule out first. I don't think Don Vito. I don't think Darth. Oddly enough, I don't think Ozzy would be a bad soccer coach. If we're talking like,
right?
Just if it's a recreational team, he may be like, hey, let the kids have fun.
Yeah. He's from England.
He probably appreciates a little good football. So,
man, I kind of want to disagree with you on Darth. I feel like could Darth be a good soccer coach? Leading people like.
Yeah.
You just don't want him to
with the kids. You're recruiting him for the kids to be a good soccer coach, and knowing who. I mean,
What if he's arguing with the referees?
yeah, using the force, having the ball go in, force choking the opposing goalie, who's like this 8-year-old kid.
So is it Mike Brady? Is he the cheesy,
Mike-
just every suburban dad guy? Like,
Mike would fit it. Also, I think Mike, Phil, and Ozzy
yeah,
are the
'Cause-
three that are in play for me to be a soccer coach.
Mike raised a soccer team. I mean, they had 47 kids, right?
Yeah. I think Mike could do it. Phil could do it. I think, man, I could go either. I could go Ozzy or Mike. I think I'm leaning now between the three: Ozzy, Phil, Dunphy, and Mike Brady. I think of those three, I'm leaning more towards Ozzy and Mike. So I'll let you pick between Ozzy and Mike. I like the fact that you had said Ozzy is from England. He probably appreciates the game a little bit more. He probably actually knows about the game a little bit more.
Man, Mike just strikes me as just that he's just that every suburban dad guy. Just give him the shorts, the clipboard, and the oranges.
He would be my number 2 there. So yeah, I could,
you good
if
with
you're
that?
leaning towards him, I'll do Mike.
Okay.
All right, taking Mike Brady off the board. So Greg, that leaves us with 4 more scenarios, and we have 4 dads still open.
Okay.
Don Vito, Ozzy Osbourne, Darth Vader, and Phil Dunphy.
Let's see here. Let's go with our next scenario. Have you seen Mrs. Doubtfire?
I have.
All right.
Robin Williams?
Which of these dads could dress in drag and trick his ex-wife? Like Mrs. Doubtfire.
I can see Ozzy
Mm-hmm.
doing that with Sharon.
Yeah.
Like, I almost wonder, was that even an episode?
Right.
I think Phil would try it. They like dressing up. Phil and Claire like dressing up and getting kinky and doing stuff like that. So they may want to kind of reverse where he dresses like a woman and Claire dresses like a guy for one of their date anniversary nights at the hotel. Because they role play. I don't know if you watch a lot of Modern Family, but they have a couple role playing nights.
So let me throw a wrinkle in this to you.
Yeah.
Since we're down to 4, does it make sense to get all the scenarios out at this point, or do you want to just like we've got 4 scenarios and 4 guys?
I think we need to stick with what we kind of said. Like, we just go plow through it, and then maybe down the road when we do the game again, and we're like, hey, we need to change it up.
Okay.
So there's a strategy here to where, which characters are a little more flexible with possible scenarios coming down the line. I'm leaning towards Ozzy on this one, but what do you think?
All right, I got an idea. We don't know what Darth looks like. So if Darth dressed in drag, we might not recognize him. Would we recognize him? Because I feel like Ozzy's going to be Ozzy. Like, could Ozzy play Mrs. Doubtfire?
I mean,
but could Darth Vader show up as like a
he's got that fucked up, burned up face though.
Yeah, that's true. All right, I'll go with Ozzy.
I mean, he's got the cape on, which could be kind of a
like. Could he look like Rosie from Jetsons? Because Miss Doubtfire was the housekeeper,
right,
or the nanny or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine
Greg
Darth
bringing a
walking
Jetsons reference that I'm sure only people 60 years old and older would remember?
Yeah. And God, could you imagine? So imagine the crossover of Star Wars and Mrs. Doubtfire, where Darth Vader is taking care of the twin babies. Like he's found Anakin and Leia, or Luke and Leia. I just don't. I mean,
I think to pull it off, I don't think Darth would be able to pull that off because he was never kind of a household figure, kind of like a Mrs. Doubtfire. So if you're saying somebody that's kind of a Mrs. Doubtfire that could maybe assume, I don't know, shoot.
Yeah.
If you're feeling strong about something, I'll go with you, but I'm leaning towards Ozzy on this one.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's between Ozzy and Phil. I mean, Phil strikes me as more of the like nanny type, you know. So
he could definitely, especially when
like
Claire had to go to work at her dad's business, and Phil did a lot of the stuff at the house.
All right, let's go, Phil.
Do Phil? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Phil is off the board. So, Greg, this leaves us with 3: Don Vito, Darth Vader, and Ozzy Osbourne for the final 3 scenarios that you have for us.
Yeah, let's make it easy. Our 8th scenario or 7th scenario is who would make the best boss. And I use boss in quotes because I was thinking of The Godfather. So do we just take? I mean, it's like you can't. That's who he is. Like
the best boss. Yeah, I kind of that's who I would lean toward also.
Darth's a pretty good boss too, I guess you could argue. So I mean, I'm gonna let
Darth is more, but I don't know if he's a boss though.
He's more of an emperor.
He's kind of I don't think he's kind of this managerial boss type thing. Mm-hmm. Darth is kind of like somebody he's given a leeway into going to get stuff done kind of on his own.
Yeah.
And he's not doing a lot of bossing.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's take Don Vito off the list. Make it easy. He's the boss. He's always going to be the boss. So that leaves us with two scenarios.
Ozzy Osbourne and Darth Vader are left for the final 2 scenarios,
which are hilarious. I kind of want to throw them out at the same time because it's super funny. Or do you want me to
stick? So we got to stick to what we said.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think it's going to go how I thought. Okay. Scenario 8. Have you seen The Shining?
I have.
Which father is most likely to go crazy and lose his mind like The Shining?
Oh, well, I think you can make an argument for either one, but if I were to remember The Shining, a great Jack Nicholson movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm leaning Darth Vader doing that.
Yeah, he's the one. Can you imagine him in that hotel just whipping that sword around?
Well, that the famous scene of Jack with the axe or something hitting through the door.
He would have just been able to like cut it with a lightsaber.
The lightsaber, you see this red lightsaber going through, and it's coming through. I lean Darth.
Yeah. All right, so Darth's off the board for the Shining dad, most likely to go crazy. That leaves us with one scenario left. And have you ever seen American Pie?
Oh, I love it.
Which dad would you want to find you pounding an apple pie?
And it comes down to Ozzy.
Yep. And I kind of feel like that's the one. They'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
But I also could see the scenario to where you walk in on him with the apple pie.
Like, I didn't know you were home.
I think Sharon probably has caught Ozzy doing that.
Yeah, with many a thing, not just apple pies. That's so that
works out.
So let's recap. So our taken father was who would rescue in a kidnapping scenario was Jack.
Yep,
the
Jack
bottom right from
Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents. Yep. Our American president would be Mufasa from Lion King.
Yep.
Birds and bees. Which dad would you want to have the sex talk with? We landed on Heathcliff Huxtable.
Makes sense. OBGYN.
Which dad would you want to share your first beer with? Obviously, we picked Clark Griswold from Vacation. Who's coaching the soccer team? We landed on Mike Brady.
Yep.
Bottom left from the Brady Bunch. Who could play the role of Mrs. Doubtfire? Trick the ex-wife. And we landed on Phil from Modern Family for that. 8 was an easy one, or 7 was an easy one. The Godfather. Who makes the best boss? Obviously, it's Don Vito. And then finally, our last two. From reference to the movie The Shining, who's the dad that most likely go crazy? Well, we went with Darth Vader. Kind of, a natural choice there.
Yeah.
And finally, American Pie, classic. Which dad would you want to find you pounding an apple pie? And we landed on Ozzy Osbourne. So I think that all worked out pretty well. Like,
beautiful. That it worked out. The fact, again, to remind people that you and I did not talk about our list.
Nope.
We did not talk about our list, and it worked out great, and we stuck to the rules. We didn't switch things around.
I love it. I love the little surprises. It's fun.
That was a blast. If you guys have a different scenario, let us know somewhere in the comments, wherever you're seeing the podcast. Put in the comments there, YouTube on the video. Let us know. And from Greg and Brian, the interns at Iller and Filthier, we'll see you guys next week.
Happy
See
Father's
ya.
Day.